And it, there you go. We're going. I just said enough chit chat. Keep your attention. I always find that shiny objects are good with people. So, oh, I've got it backwards. It's a little birdie chick, I guess. Anyways, keep that there. People's attention. Huh?
You went to an event or something?
No.
He went to CVS.
Yeah, I got it somewhere like Walmart or CVS. Anyways, I sent out another. Yes, today I have to. I don't want to, but I got to collect those assignments. First assignment, and I'll have to give you another assignment sometime next month. No. Hold off on the questions first, please. And I sent out another email. I said I would think about another extra credit, and then something just kind of fell in my lap. I got an email from, maybe you got it too, about that nuns talk on April 7th. So I sent that out to you, and basically it's like the other extra credit, just give me 1 page, single-spaced, 1-inch margins, okay? So now that you've gotten back something from me, you should know what I expect. Even though it's an extra credit assignment, whenever you're turning in a college-level essay, you do not talk like you're talking on the street. That should be obvious. I would think it would be obvious, okay? Yeah, I mean, if I'm meeting President Obama, I'm not going, hey, bro, yo, hey, you been to big time, yo, hey, because he'd think I was a dope. Or he might be cool about it, because he seems to be kind of cool about stuff. But, if you're meeting someone important, you would, comport yourself and, yes, sir, no, sir, it's... Same thing when writing an essay. Just remember that as a general rule of thumb for whatever course you're doing it, not just this one. Remember when you're writing that you're not talking to someone on the street. So you want to make sure your thoughts are not rambling together. You don't want to use contractions. Okay? You have to make sure your grammar is correct because you're writing. You're not talking. Talking is different. Talking... Make all sorts of mistakes when we're talking. Yes?
The extra credit is on the outrageous women and their God.
Yes? Yes. So you have to come to campus, not this campus, Lodi, and go to Oval Hall, and they have a lecture hall or an auditorium, and you go there and listen to the good sister. Hopefully she won't say anything too controversial. But hold on to it, sir. I'll be there, and I'll take attendance of who's going to be there. I also am going to check into recording it, because you have to get permission. It's her talk, and I don't know if they're going to be recording it. But if I can record it, I will.
You'll be there? On a name and paper?
Well, I have to grade you on it, so I have to know what the lady says. So I've got to be there.
So us not going to do extra credit.
And hold on. So I will record it, and if I can record it, I'll post it. I'll upload it to YouTube as per usual. But I don't know yet. She might not give permission. In that case, you're out of luck if you don't show up. If you don't show up, then you'll have to rely on somebody else's notes or something. I would say you take notes.
You can record it. How you do it in class.
I know. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. But anyways, so that's that. So when you write for me again, the extra credit, please take that into account. Please take that into account. Your opinions are not gold. Not all of them. I'm sure you're all beautiful people. Okay? You're all beautiful people. Okay? You're all intelligent people. You're all clever people when you're paying attention. But not everything that comes out of your head, not every thought is gold. Okay? So you need to know that because you can write stuff down and write opinions and stuff like that, and I'm reading your extra credit or something, or your assignment, and it's like, okay, thank you for giving me your opinion. I'm glad that you want to share it with me, but it has like nothing to do with the assignment. Because people think all their opinions are gold. You know, got to know everything I'm thinking of, Mr. Dunn, you know, on everything. This is my, okay, well, the assignment asks a very specific question. Hopefully you addressed it. Hopefully you didn't go off and telling me your opinions about why, this is why I think that Trump is raising this issue, and Trump is this, and Trump is that. All right, that's fine, you know. I hope you didn't do that, but we'll see. So that's another, that's an extra credit assignment. Now, on to definitions? Yes, definitions. Not yet. Not yet. We're almost there.
You sent 2 emails of the same thing. Where you
I
sent
did?
something else?
I don't remember why I sent it twice. Maybe there was a mistake in the first email. I think, I keep forgetting that there's no way, except I think in going to WebAdvisor to email everybody in the class at once, and even which is really nice, but it doesn't allow you to attach anything, nothing. You know, it's like nothing. It's like nothing you can do with it. So I create my own list of everybody in the course, but for that, you know, when you're writing an email, it doesn't show up in your list of contacts. You have to go into contacts, I have to select my list, select everybody in the list, and then click that thing that says send an email to everybody, all the checked contacts. So it's, you know, it's a hassle, and so I wanted to send it again just to make sure I didn't screw up and miss people on sending it out. That's why you got it twice. All right. Where were we? Number 2? Oh, okay, so I did that. Number 3, I believe, was the last thing I was talking about, where we ended. Number 3, provide a summary statement of the reference of our concepts. Okay, so just to repeat and kind of re-impress information on our minds, concept is like the genus, the general idea, okay, that is the main, I guess, almost like the anchor of the definition. And then the reference would be all those things which distinguish species, to make it more specific. So to go back again ad nauseum to our definition of dictionary, Ms. Almonte. Dictionary. Why is she walking this? Why are you walking that way? What? She went to the copier thing. She came over. Maybe the copier's broken. I don't know. Anyway. Dictionary, the concept of a book, and then the referent of which gives the meaning of words. So book is the concept, and then referent is the species, the book that gives definite meanings of words. And if I then said to you, you know, like a law dictionary, what would a law dictionary be? Not a reference. Kind of reference. Nope. Huh? Species. Good, yes. Yes, good. Different word for it, though. Huh? Differentia. Differentia. Okay? It differentiates one species from another, so you're getting even more specific. A law dictionary as opposed to a dictionary of sociology, you know, or a dictionary of biblical theology, which I have at home. Stuff like that. Okay? So it also provides a summary statement of the reference, which I don't know what to say about that. That's, I guess, kind of obvious. But, you know, then again, I'm trying to follow Kelly because he's our textbook. See what Mr. Dunn wrote down while he was thinking about it. I actually do think about when I'm reading the textbook. So when you're reading the chapter, I'm reading it too, and I'm suffering too. Especially the chapter on argument. It was exceptionally boring. They're just like, dude, you know, we get the point. And then diagramming arguments with the, you know, like, no, that's not going to happen. Don't worry, we're not going to diagram arguments. we'll go over arguments, talk about them in depth, but thank God there was no gun in the room when I was going over that. No. Mr. Dunn's a happy man. Mr. Dunn's a happy, nonviolent man. A happy, nonviolent, non-suicidal man. Happy. Okay, anyway. So a good definition should condense our knowledge, make concrete. Interesting. I'm thinking of that word concrete, to congeal. Okay, condense can also mean the same, can also have the same kind of meaning, condensation, where a gas becomes a fluid, a solid type material. Should condense our knowledge about the reference of a concept, but it's just giving highlights. It's giving the key points, the essence. It's not giving the attributes, all the characteristics. It's not meant to tell us absolutely everything, okay, about God. Something I mentioned about Jesus when we were back in the beginning of the course was talking about Jesus as the source of reason and knowledge and wisdom. And I went over and talked about the statement about Jesus saying he's the way, the truth, and the life. Okay? He calls himself the truth. Not all truth. Sometimes people think, that puzzles people, because they'll be like, well, Jesus, if he's the Son of God, why didn't he tell us about evolution? Why didn't Jesus preach against the atomic bomb? Or talk about AIDS? Or torture. Stuff like that. Some modern concerns. Terrorism, another modern concern. Why did he talk about what he talked about? Because the idea has been that Jesus is kind of like a definition of God in a way. Jesus defines God, and it doesn't give, like any good definition, he talks what you could say his concept is God, and then he gives us the reference of God: mercy, love, forgiveness, openness, stuff like that. He didn't have to tell us everything, like any definition, any good definition. He doesn't have to tell you everything about what it's defining. It's like our definition of a dictionary, or my definition of a dictionary. Ooh. So a definition just wants to give us the highlights, the essence of what we're looking for. Okay? Maybe it will give, as our dictionary example from Merriam-Webster, it might give a picture of something else, to show you this is an example of. That's probably a good definition of like a differentia. If you're looking at a dictionary or a definition term, and it says, goes to the point where it says this is an example of, I don't know, a bird. They give you a picture of a bird, okay, some type of bird. I got birds on the mind because my mom, have you ever seen, maybe this is in the news, they've got a bald eagle nesting by the White House. Anyone seen this? And they've got like a 24-hour a day, 7 days a week camera going on the poor bird. And my mom loves it because the mother bird is getting all sorts of trouble from the eaglets, the little babies, because they're moving around and she keeps trying to keep them underneath, and they just want to move around. You know how babies are. Babies are out. It's like a jailbreak, I'm out of the womb, baby. Let's pate. Well, it is like that with a baby because they eat all the time, they drink all the time. It's a party, as we used to say in the 90s. Anywho, so they might show you a picture, It's an example of, differentia. That should get, immediately you should think, differentia. It's an example of this, of a bird, a robin, a cardinal, a blue jay. Definitions are important because they help us ward off the danger of being too vague. So, for example, when I was talking about language several weeks ago and trying to come up with a workable definition of language, I didn't come up with a perfect definition. When I looked at it later, there are things that I would change in my definition of language. But just saying that language is a form of communication. Okay? Well, it's not exactly language, okay, but there are all sorts of forms of body language, we say. But, from the way you talk, people talk with their hands, people talk with their faces, without saying a word, you can know whether someone might be, joking with you or serious. What? Just from body language, and sometimes you show off your emotions whether you want to or not, So you got to be careful. Well, you got to be careful, not careful, but sometimes you want to be aware of that. I had a professor, and I was doing my PhD. I had a course on the Jesus of history, Christ of faith. We were reading all sorts of articles. It was basically Jesus, about Jesus Christ. We're reading all sorts of articles, feminist stuff. If you probably know what I'm talking about. If you've been in literature and stuff like that, you read so stuff that's focused on women's concerns, like feminists, literate stuff. There's feminist theology, but there's also feminist psychology, feminist, literary studies, all sorts. There's black studies, black theology, all sorts of Korean theology. So, African theology, which is not the same as black theology. It's usually referring to U.S. blacks, which is different from African theology. So we're reading all these articles about Jesus and all sorts of stuff, and the professor was kind of, I hate to use the word liberal because it's such a political term, and to me it doesn't mean anything, but for some reason people know what you mean. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, well, he was open to the fact that maybe, let's say, Jesus wasn't God or something. I don't think so, but he was kind of like of that type, in a way, I guess. He wasn't, very much accepting of the church, I guess you could say.
So he was teaching about the church, but he wasn't.
Yeah, he probably didn't believe everything the Catholic Church taught, whereas I do, 100%. Oh yeah. To me, it's kind of like, if I'm going to be a theologian, it's kind of like a doctor going to medical school and still having questions about germs. When you go to a doctor who's like, you bring your kid to the guy and it's like, germs, that's not 100%. Washing your hands all the time, should be work. I don't know, I'm a doctor, I can't see anything on my hands, it looks clean to me. Oh, I got surgery now, so I'll see you. Stick my hand in someone's guts, without washing them. There was a time, believe it or not, when doctors, and even more than that, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when germ theory started to develop, and there were some doctors who started washing their hands with alcohol and stuff like that, because even though they couldn't see them, there was evidence that there were certain bacteria that could cause harm to the patient. Because it was obvious. I mean, it was a scientific method. It was an empirical method. When a doctor who didn't wash his hands had a higher incidence of infection for his patients that he was working on than the doctor who did. Because someone said, something's going on there. Now, you think the medical community would have been on board with that?
They weren't.
Why do you say that?
Because they thought they were breathing levels of
No, why do you say that? How do you know that? You learned it. God bless you. I reverence learning. I reverence learning in a person who takes that in. No, the medical establishment thought that the people washing their hands with alcohol, sometimes you could get fired for that. They thought you were cuckoo, you know, there were these things you couldn't see in under a microscope even, and supposedly they were there, these little creatures that could cause disease and even kill your patients. No. Oh yeah, go into a hospital and they kill you. That's what happened to President McKinley. I think it was McKinley. He was assassinated, or some anarchist shot him. He was one of our early presidents, like the 1910s. Some anarchist came up and shot him, but he survived. But the doctors were the ones who killed him because they kept digging around trying to find the bullet in his leg or someplace with unclean hands. But they just kept digging, and it got totally infected. He got septicemia, which is called the infection of blood. Killed him. Come on. Today, the guy would have lived. Obviously. Well, I shouldn't say that. Nothing's 100%. If you've been to any hospitals lately, most people are likely to die from infections, which tells you something. So we're like full circle, right? Full circle. But anyways, how to get off on that definition? Talking about definition, wasn't I? How do you get off on that, Ms. Almonte? Huh?
Definition of how you could kill an hospital.
Definition of how you could kill. Well, thank you for that. But that's a good comment, but not helpful. I gotta go back in my brain and figure out how I got off on that track. Let's see. I was talking about medicine, germs. Oh yeah, theologians. So. I'd say, I'm a Catholic theologian. I mean, this is a philosophy class, but, it's a religion class. I'm a Catholic theologian, but I don't really think Jesus really rose from the dead. I think he was buried and his bones are somewhere. Okay. I'm not saying that, but to me that's kind of, but yeah, I remember this professor at this class, you could tell from his body language he didn't like me very much, because every time I would say, say something, and it was a discussion-oriented course. It's, you were expected to discuss the articles you read, kind of like this course. So I'm glad to see more people are saying things. Bump up those, not nonsensical things, Mr. Williams, but to bump up that allows me to give you a higher grade for class participation. I can only help you as much as you allow me to help you. You always like roll his eye. And you make a face like a sour puss. And you do it openly, and everyone knew it, Eventually there's one student in the class who was like kind of a liberal Baptist, was like, he doesn't like you, does he? He left the room for a moment, he's like, man, he doesn't like you. Like, no, he doesn't, Because I don't know, I just gave my opinions. I didn't say anything mean, I wasn't cursing, I wasn't insulting, I just gave my opinions. But it didn't happen to jive with him. With his or what he thought I should be. Also, I was an American, and I was up in Canada. Canadians are wonderful people, but Americans were kind of a little thorn in their side because they always, we don't have to think about them, but they always have to think about us. Because of just the way things are. They're a large country in area, but they've only got 30 million in population. We've got 300 million. Their military, there are more, and this is true, literally true, numerically true, that there are more students studying at the University of Toronto, 50,000, than are in the Canadian military. So it's very small. So they have to think about us a lot. They get our television shows, they get our music, they get all this stuff. So maybe that might have been part of it as well, that I was just the evil American who was driving my big SUV and destroying the ozone layer. I don't know. I never asked him. I wasn't going to ask him because he was one of my advisors. So keep him as happy as possible, baby, And, no. It's fine. It's fine. As long as he was fair with me, which he pretty much was. He was fair. He was a little bit unfair on the grading, but I took care of that because I started noting, like like these kind of liberalized expressions in the readings that he loved, constellations of power, stuff like that. You know, massive. You know, massive. Everything's massive. It's not large. It's not. There's not a lot of poverty on the earth. There's massive poverty, and it's not the earth. It's always global. Everything's global. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm just not speaking his language. So I started, you know, noting things, you know, in the articles, so that we were these kind of liberalized articles. Oh yes, you know, interconnectedness of power structures and stuff like that. Oh, okay. Ooh, yeah, that sounds good. You know, and I made a list of the phrases. You know, probably shouldn't tell you this because I made a list of the phrases, and then and this is actually good because it maybe helps you out. When I was writing essays, because we had to write essays on most of the articles we read, and I was being honest, but I was also being clever. I was also being clever, as Jesus said, be as wise as a serpent, but as simple as a dove. So I had to put on my serpent for a little bit, my serpent hat. And I made sure that when I was writing my essay, that every comment, I put a little P before it or an N. P for positive, N for negative. So, and then what I did was, when I was writing the essay, I made sure I chose more of the P positive comments, which were all my opinions, so I wasn't doing anything that was, I wasn't misrepresenting any of my opinions, but it was helping me not be maybe unintentionally or unconsciously negative maybe about an article I didn't like. So I could focus more on the positive. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you can do that. You know, it can come out in your writing, just like body language. The style you write about something, the reader can get a sense of, oh, she doesn't like that, you know, or she's not in agreement with this, which really shouldn't matter to the professor. But sometimes it does to the professors because that's their bread and butter, that's their thing, you know. And so you have to sometimes count out of that. And I noticed my grades started going up a little bit, you know. The grades started grading me a little bit higher. I'm like, all right then. Yeah. So, you know, he did want agreement. Some professors like that. They like it when you agree with them. Me, I could care less. You can tell me you totally disagree with me, that's fine. You know, because when you're burning in hell, I'll be in heaven. That's all right with me. What? I never just a tourist even though he deserved it. An Amish with a tube, you know that's unheard of. I don't wear any buttons, but I got a cool hat, and my homies agree I look good in black, boo. No. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. I'm being recorded. So I'm joking. Body language. Okay? It can't hear you over there. I'll edit you out, Ms. Nelson. I got to see. You don't got my back. I got you. All right. That's how it is. All right. So language is just a form of communication is too broad. Okay, you got to take into account alphabets and grammar, the fact that language is not just spoken, but it's written. Okay, and not all languages are like that. Sign language, okay, yes, is considered a language of sorts. It's kind of a hanger-on, even though there is no writing system for sign language, there is no speaking system for, it's not spoken language either because it's for deaf people. You know, who, I guess deaf people could, well, you don't write down the signs, but if a deaf person wanted to communicate via language, they would write down, you could write down notes, write down a statement or words. Definitions help us to use a concept or protect us, I guess. It's a protection from, using a concept in an essentially radically different way than what the concept means. So saying that playing the piano is language. Well, playing the piano for some people might be the way they express themselves. Okay, but it's not a language. That thing I showed you, Soul Ray Soul by Francois Soudra, came up on the last quiz. Soudra, Soul Ray Soul, he was a musician. He developed this language based on the scale, the musical scale. You could play it. I mean, I showed you an example on the internet, people singing it, okay? You could speak it, but you could also sing it. You could also play it on a piano. And it would still be, you could still understand it. It's a really cool idea. It's really cool to develop further. But anyways, of using sound, the sound as a way of encompassing an idea, or a linguistic concept. But playing the piano is not language. It's music. It's music. Music has its own language in a sense, if we want to say that, it has its own kind of writing system. But it doesn't mean anything except for telling you which sound to make. But it's not like giving you a message. It's not giving you words, unless of course you're watching some old Sherlock Holmes mystery where the main clue is, everybody's watching this mystery Murder, She Wrote, and they always got an episode, where someone dies, and the last thing that the guy does is reach up to because this is the 80s with Murder, She Wrote, reaches up to the synthesizer and you go, and then he croaks. And then the rest of the show for Jessica Fletcher, is to find out what those tones were supposed to mean. And then if you know that the first tone was an A on the scale, and the next tone was a B on the scale, and the next tone was an E on the scale, Abe! It was you, Abraham, that killed him. And before he died, he typed out, put out Abe on the pressed A-B-E on the synthesizer. So do I. I love it. I love the hair. Oh, baby's hair. It's like clown hair. It's huge, huge. Anyways. Hey, but that's what people did in the 80s. Thank God it wasn't that you were little kids with the grunge. Does anyone remember the grunge? Where people didn't wash their hair, you just had long, dirty locks and didn't wash them and stunk to high. I didn't, but I was around people who were like that. Worked with some of them, and it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant. So it can help us say what something is not. Okay, I brought up the issue of marriage. I mean, the concept of marriage, I think, has been defined in a way that even the essence of the concept it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's been so broadened as to possibly include so many different types of relationships than what the word originally, some might say traditionally, was meant to convey. So it's kind of weird, because if you're fighting, if I were a gay man, not necessarily, but that's neither here nor there, for sake of argument, if I were a gay man and I were fighting for gay marriage, I'd turn around and be like, well, I'm married to my partner, but now the word marriage doesn't mean anything anymore. What does it mean? What does the concept mean if you ask me to define marriage? Well, I'm in a relationship with somebody, a committed relationship. Okay, and I can rattle, as I did last time, rattle off a whole bunch of counterexamples of committed relationships that are not marriage. Well, we have a legal relationship, if we try to separate, she gets half, or I should say he gets half my stuff and I have, well, that's with any business relationship. If I have a business partner and I breach the contract, you have to divide up the assets. That's all that is. That's all a divorce is. Really, the government, the court is not there to make judgments on people's character. It's just there to decide assets. Because they treat it like a contract. Huh?
That's why they sign the contract when you get married.
Well, you make a contract. Well, that's why you have to sign the registry, and you have to sign paperwork and stuff like that. So there's a whole legal thing involved.
For a partnership? Yeah.
Oh, for a marriage. If you like, even if you go to a church, I mean, the minister.
You still have all paper.
Yeah. That's only because of the law. The law doesn't have to do that. The law could say that you had to go to the government. You know, it allows in most, I'm going to say most states, because we have 50 states and not every, and territories, and not every place has the same laws, but I'm going to assume that in most states, clergy people are allowed to act as representatives of the government when they marry people. You know, take the signatures and witness the thing. It's not a conflict. Well, at least the courts don't think it's a conflict, but okay. I got you. Well, because the government isn't saying which religion is true. Remember that the First Amendment says freedom for the practice of religion. You know, so the government should not stand in the way of religion, but it also should not promote a religion. It's not promoting anything as long as it doesn't say, well, we only recognize Christian ministers, but Hindus and Muslim imams or their leaders, no. That would be, yes, that would say you're being biased. So to me, it's kind of ironic, you know. I'd be a person with same-sex attraction, and we finally won, got to the Supreme Court agreed with us. We can get married, and now marriage doesn't seem to mean very much. I mean, legally, it's like, what is it? What is it now? So definitions can help define boundaries of what something is and what something is not. A book is not an encyclopedia, even though encyclopedias are made up of books. They're made up of books. But they're not dictionaries. Dictionaries are books. So books are, not everything is a book. The things you're going to hand it to me later are stapled on a few sheets of paper. That ain't a book. That ain't a book. I need a little love. There you go. She's still going at it. Encourage her. But anyways. What's something else that I can say? Do I need to say this? I don't even know if I need to say this, but I wrote it down anyways. To identify the genus, we need to look for the element in a defining statement that refers to a wider class. Okay? Seems to be, you know, tautological by now that when we're referring to the genus, we're referring to the more general. And so we're looking for the widest thing that's going to be included in the defining statement, and yet should state the essential attributes of the concept's reference. And I think I mentioned this to somebody after class last week. I don't know who it was. Maybe Ms. Montez. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That it's almost a contradiction in a way, or a contrary thing, where on the one hand, the definition is supposed to include everything, on the one hand, be wide enough to include all books for a dictionary, but then with the reference uninclude, to exclude everything that would not be a dictionary. They're kind of doing double duty, positive and negative in a sense. This is what I think I'm referring to. What Kelly is talking about is that the genus should be referred to a wider class, but state the essential attributes. So again, go back to dictionary, and I'll just keep beating this horse till it's dead. Well, it's long dead, but then you'll remember it for the test. Yes, we have a broad concept, which then becomes very narrow. So it might seem counterintuitive that for the word dictionary, or for any definition, you're not starting with the specification. You're starting kind of like in the reverse with the generalization. You know, you just say a dictionary gives you the meaning of words. See, I started with the referent. It's something that gives you the, well, forget about that. I just put it even, see, that's how we think. I even put it as genus without thinking about it. It just came out. But if I just said, you know, went straight to the specification. Dictionary, a dictionary gives the meaning of words. Well, what's the genus? What type of thing that gives you the meaning of words? Say a book, okay, then we're very specific. Because you can go on an internet dictionary. That's why maybe the dictionary, I was also thinking about the definition of dictionary. It might have to be broadened given that we now have the internet, because you now have other resources. You have online stuff, which are not books. They're in the cloud. You know, they're a bunch of ones and zeros in computer code that you look at on a screen. It's not a physical, it was much simpler when it was a physical, an actual physical object. Ain't that way anymore. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of a better example maybe. Let's see. Okay, I'm on to something. I'm thinking of something. Okay. Thinking of automobile, but I'm trying to think of what would the reference be. Four-wheel. Well, not necessarily, because you have automobile. Well, that's not true, because, yeah, say, so four wheels with an internal combustion engine, maybe, because now we have electric cars, but some sort of engine that drives the wheels and makes them go forward or different directions. Okay. So I start with the reference, and then I guess the genus would be vehicle. It's a vehicle, comes from the Latin word, which am I really that bad? Am I like a torturer or something? Anyways, sometimes. Thank you. God bless you. Wish Mr. Kaiser were here. He'd tell me the truth. Anyways, yes, you are. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Appreciate the honesty. Honesty, low five. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. But yeah, the genus would be a vehicle. Vehicle means something that conveys something. Moves it from place to place, which could be a whole lot of stuff. It could be a whole lot of stuff. You know, but if I say, well, it's, you know, a thing with wheels, if I start with the reference and say, well, it's a thing with wheels that has an engine. Okay, but there are a lot of things with wheels that have engines. Four wheels, okay, because usually three wheels in a lot of states, well, that's a question, because, you know, motorcycles were clear because they were like bicycles. Four wheels were automobiles. But what if you have three wheels? Is that a motorcycle or is it an automobile? Huh? Or is it a thank you, a tricycle? Is it a bus? You know, and in some places, the law had to step in and say, okay, we define a three-wheeled vehicle as a kind of a motorcycle or a bike some way. So there are some places where you don't need a license to drive a three-wheeled, what for all purposes is basically a car or an automobile, but has three wheels. Oh, and when he talks about essential, Kelly, just to make, I'm just making something clear that just in case you didn't know, essence, but other ways to describe this, to understand it, are things that are fundamental to the definition. Okay, it explains the existence for the other attributes. Okay, why is there a place, or it explains how you can have a place where it can give you the meaning of words. Okay, I'm sorry, that's not a good example. When you're talking about a dictionary, which is a book which gives the meaning of words, you're explaining why that book is what it is. You're not going to a dictionary to read it like a novel. You're not coming at it from the same perspective. You're not opening it from the front and starting with chapter 1 and going to the end. There are no chapters. Okay, it's organized differently than a novel. It has a totally different purpose. It's probably written by more than one person. And not even written. They're called editors. So they're not even authors, Mr. Brito. They're editors, because they're just putting the definitions in order and making sure that the definitions are clear and apt, correct, to the word. Maybe choosing which kind of pictures they want to put with certain definitions. So when Kelly talks about fundamental characteristics, okay, these explain, well, basically why you have this thing, in a way. All right? Why do you have a dictionary? Because it gives the meaning of words. So that's the fundamental meaning of a dictionary. It's not to tell you stories. It's not to give you etymologies, although they sometimes do, and also sometimes they do tell stories, like the Oxford Dictionary gives sometimes lengthy examples from actual written works to show you context of how it were. Okay, that's fine. It also makes the Oxford Dictionary huge, but you don't need to do that. Okay. That's the end of definition. We'll move on to argument, for which I have no PowerPoint, but I do have a video. You don't have to be prepared for when he asks you scat and skidoo and pat dance. Please make sure I'm not pointing any fingers at you. Yeah, just please make sure people take their garbage with you. Have some courtesy of people who clean the room. Not their job to clean up my garbage. Their job to clean the room, or whatever use there might be, but
they gotta have something to clean. So I said they gotta have something to clean. That's the case.
Are those all the notes you've taken? Is that the one page? Where are all your notes? Really? Page, almost a page and a half? Good. Well, hopefully they're good. It's a little bit sketchy.
Why are you coming for me?
Yeah, well, because you opened your mouth. You put the bullseye on yourself.
That was a golden opinion, though.
Let's hope that I actually have it on. Oh no, what am I doing? I was going to my website. Not my website, my YouTube channel. Which I just use for educational purposes. I have no desire to tell people what I'm listening to or what. Come on. I just want to use things. I told you, I don't even use my cell phone. I went and got a watch, cheapo watch from Walmart. They still like, nice. Tells me the date and the day. Tired of looking at a cell phone. Something in me said, no more. I've had enough! Ms. Edwards. She's not listening to me. She's doing something. That's okay. Maybe her purgatory will be taking this class over with me.
I don't like your sense of humor at all.
Sorry, Ms. Edwards.
Don't worry, I'm the only one getting a little grade.
Okay, hold on. This is, in case you don't know, who is this man?
Cooper.
The guy from what? CNN, good. He's from CNN. Cooper, thank you. And I know you said that, Mr. Williams. I got you. I know. Okay, Anderson Cooper. Here's a show on CNN called 360 Degrees, which I guess means they're supposed to look at an issue from all angles, which doesn't really work because 360 degrees is for a circle, which is circular, not angular. But okay, you know, we'll just go with it. That was a really clever. Too hard for these people. That was years ago. He had this guy on. Unfortunately, the guy's dead. May he rest in peace. Right. Christopher Hitchens. Huh?
Natural causes?
What?
From natural causes?
No, cancer. The guy was a smoker. He got cancer in his throat, I think.
Terribly so.
So Anderson Cooper's still alive. He's going to interview in a moment Christopher Hitchens, who's a British guy, came to America, became an American citizen. Basically, he was a polemicist in a way. He polemics. He got into arguments about stuff, and he was an opinions person, which I would love to be. I'd love to get paid to write editorials for newspapers and pump out books just giving my opinion and whatever. Some people seem, as Algerian, to be able to do that and to make a good living off of it. You get invited to colleges, think tanks, give talks about a bunch of stuff that I maybe or maybe don't know about, but you know, I just I got a PhD so people listen to me. Anyways, Hitchens wrote a book, and this was, I think it was just before, or no, not just before, around the time of the Iraq War. This was the second Iraq War, not the early 90s one where Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and the United Nations, with the United States, mainly us, fought back Saddam Hussein. There was a second one where supposedly Saddam Hussein had all sorts of, I don't know, weapons of mass destruction of undifferentiated kinds. He had like just about everything. I don't know. You know, he had like the Death Star for all we knew. Maybe I shouldn't joke about it because so many people died. But anyways. And, of course, remember in the early years of the Iraq War, you know, there was a lot of trouble because not just the people fighting back, but there were also Muslim Islamic groups that were fighting back. Thinking of Muqtada al-Sadr, because a lot of the religious leaders had a lot of, you know, a lot of authority amongst their followers in the Islamic groups there. And that's perhaps something that we did not really understand before we invaded, how Shiite Islam was different from Sunni Islam. One of those things we maybe should have figured out before we went in there. But anyways, so you had different Shiite groups. We thought, oh, they're all Muslims. They're just all Muslims. They all get along. Well, they're not all Muslims. You know, and there are Muslims who think that some other forms of Islam are wrong and that they should be killed because they're wrong Muslims, you know. It's bad enough that they're the infidels who are the pagans. Infidels are not Christians and Jews. Christians and Jews are in a different class in Islam. Pagans are the infidels, those who worship like Hindus. You know, they worship many gods and stuff like that. Or they worship no god, like atheists. But then you've got the ones who have fallen away, like, you know, certain Muslim groups. And so they must die. They must die in the interpretation of some Islamic groups. Not everybody is like that. So you have Shiite and Sunni, like ISIL, that we've got ISIL that just blew up all the stuff in Brussels and Belgium and blew up the stuff in, killed people in Paris. They are Sunni Islam, which is the more, I guess, traditional, historical form of Islam, the original form, I might, you know, more akin to the original form. Most Muslims are Sunni. It's looking like 90 to 85% to 90% of Muslims across the world are that. But there is about 15%, 10% are this different group called Shiite or Shia. And they're different. And so ISIL, you know, what they're doing is, most Muslims in Syria are Shia. So the ISIL guys have been killing, it's not just a political revolution, but Assad, who is the president of Syria, the dictator, we might say, but we would say in our news stuff, he wouldn't call himself a dictator, I'm sure, but he's a Shiite, he's a particular version of Shiite. So ISIL hates him, they want to kill him because he's not a Sunni. So all this mess of one group, religion, politics, all of it coming together. So Hitchens wrote this book. Hitchens was already an atheist, but I guess he, in my personal opinion, I think he just got fed up because he thought, you know, if you read some of this stuff before the invasion of Iraq, he was like all for it, like, yeah, we got to go in there, we got to topple Saddam. Saddam is the most evil man in the history of the world. We got to make Iraq free, and then freedom will blossom throughout the Near East, and which, of course, that wasn't happening. He was wrong. You know, he had opinions that he was wrong about. In my opinion, instead of admitting he was wrong, instead he decided that all religion was awful. So he wrote this book called God is Not Great. Now he'll let him describe it to you in his own words.
On the break, we were talking about the firestorm between Mitt Romney and Reverend Al Sharpton. Sharpton says his remarks that sparked the storm weren't aimed at Romney, who's Mormon. He says they were directed at the man he was debating at the time, Christopher Hitchens, an author and outspoken atheist. The title of his latest book, God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything, pretty much sums up Hitchens' view of all things religion. I talked to him recently. In the book, God is Not Great, what is your problem with religion? I'm sure you can ask this question a million times. From the book, religion poisons everything as well as a menace to civilization. It's become a threat to human survival. Why do you see religion as purely a destructive force?
It can't keep itself to itself. It has to go out and try and convert others, try to impose itself on others. For example, if you take one case, the present Pope says, okay, AIDS in Africa is bad, but condoms much worse. That's going to mean a lot of people will die for a dogma of this kind. President Felu was also saying we should teach children about hell all over again. That's ruined the lives and childhoods of millions of people. It's a wicked thing to be saying. It's a falsehood as well. The cartoonists in Denmark can't do their job without death threats, believable ones, serious ones, attempts to sabotage the whole Danish economy. Settlers on the West Bank are trying to bring on the Messiah and try for Armageddon and bring on the end of the world. They won't be able to rest. I think that it's time that people who are secular and skeptical banded together for them. So,
do you see any benefit to belief?
What is the name of this? Is this what? See, you need to give me a definition. What is this? YouTube. It's my channel. Matthew Dunn. Yep. Look for MWIUNN. Yes, hand in your paper, please. Please bring it up, put it on the desk here, the table. Okay, yes, if you want to continue watching it, we'll watch it on Wednesday, but you continue watching it on YouTube, my channel. And I put it up on my channel because it's so hard to find the actual video. Luckily, I happen to have had it on my computer for a few years.